Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back with your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we are going to be talking about Ripple and XRP, as well as the vast majority of crypto and finance. And I want to go back to the 10th when we did see the Bank of America saying that Ripple is making waves in cross-border payments with blockchain. Now, we know from the past that Bank of America wants to utilize XRP powered on-demand liquidity. They already said it once the lawsuit is over. The big thing is that I don't think that people realize what's really happening with this lawsuit. See, when I seen the statement from Bank of America saying that they are ready to utilize XRP powered on-demand liquidity once the lawsuit is over, what it really told me is, hey, we are waiting for the infrastructure to be in place to utilize XRP. Because remember what I have said, this lawsuit will not end when you think it will. It's not going to be over as soon as you think it will. And also, the SEC is not going to be the ones providing regulatory clarity. This case was brought on to slow things down. The infrastructure is being put in place. This is going to take some time. But I want you all to understand that a regulatory rug pull will happen. When that does happen, all systems are a go after. Meaning, yes, Bank of America and many other larger financial institutions will jump on board with the utility tokens that are left over from that rug pull. I've seen a lot of people talking about this lawsuit. Recently, we've seen David Schwartz actually talking a little bit about how it's going to be over in September. And all I thought about was, wow, we are going to start to see a lot more dates being thrown out. We're going to start to see a lot more engagement farming from these dates. It is going to be nonsense. I seen over here from Digital Asset Investor, we do see at what point do we start asking if the people in power are intentionally destroying the US from the inside, and who are they doing it for and why? And here we have from Bloomberg, when it comes to crypto, the US doesn't know how to play, says DFJ founder Tim Draper. Listen closely.
I have no idea why the SEC would try to go after two groups that are doing everything they can to comply with all the ridiculous regulations that these guys are putting together. And somehow the SEC decides to slap them down. I think we need a new way of thinking at the SEC. This is not.
Has the SEC contacted you about this, Tim? Do regulators have questions for you in particular?
No, but I think they have a problem, and I think it is that they tried to make all of crypto securities or exchanges because they're called the Securities and Exchange Commission. So everything they see is either a security or an exchange. Crypto's not like that. It's a different thing. It's a different animal. And the U.S. has just been very, very slow to figure it out, to regulate it, and to set the right rules and structures so that we can continue to innovate.
Tim, do you think
the U.S. has been the center of innovation for all these years, and all of a sudden we're losing it. We're losing it to all these countries who are a little bit more fleet of foot, and they're coming and they're saying, "Hey, bring your Bitcoin company to our country. We don't have all those ridiculous regulations that are 80-something years old, 83 years old. We have a new set of regulations. They've all been set up for crypto. We know what the rules are, and here they are. And if you're an entrepreneur, this is the way you can play."
Tim,
in the U.S., you don't know how to play.
And the thing to me, right, is there's a few things behind this lawsuit that a lot of people don't realize. One, it's all by design. What they are doing, okay, is everyone's looking overseas, right? We're seeing the UK, Hong Kong, Singapore, UAE. All these areas are moving so fast on crypto and crypto regulatory frameworks and stuff like this. What they are doing is creating a problem. All right, everyone is looking at this the same exact way. They're saying the US is falling behind. The US, like what's happening in the US? The US is going to kill crypto. what we should be asking is why, right? Like what's going on here? Like why are they slowing things down? They're slowing things down so that the core infrastructure can be put in place to utilize these assets and take advantage of the efficiencies that are unlocked through some of these assets, like, for an example, XRP with what Ripple has been doing. The private and the public sector are going to collaborate. They already are. I've talked about this many times in the past. Like, as you look at the IMF, right? September of last year, reimagining money in the age of crypto and central bank digital currency. I recently made a video where I was talking about how these agencies and these organizations are always saying crypto is not going to be utilized. Okay? When they are telling you that, the opposite's actually happening. We know this. We know this from, forever ago. We look here, right? Of course, digital money has been developing for some time already. New technologies hope to democratize finance and broaden access to financial products and services. A main goal is to achieve much cheaper, instantaneous domestic and cross-border payments. The gains could be especially great for people in developing countries. As we look at what's happening around this lawsuit, a lot of people think that, Ripple was targeted, XRP was targeted. It made a lot of people think that XRP was a scam. We've seen all the big players come out of nowhere, calling Ripple, a scam, a rug pull company, that XRP is garbage. Yet guess what? XRP is still in the top 10. XRP is continuously becoming a bigger and bigger deal. Ripple as a company continues to expand. They continue to really become a force to be reckoned with around the financial sector. And guess what? They are also working with all of these major entities. So do you honestly think that this lawsuit actually has any weight behind it? I've talked about this many times in the past as well around the SEC. Like, we know today more than ever the SEC is an absolute joke. Unless you are, a sheep. Because there's a lot of people out there that are playing into the SEC's narrative and avoiding XRP and avoiding all these tokens that the SEC mentions. I said that I was investing into LCX. Everyone's like, why are you touching LCX? The SEC called it a security. I don't care what the SEC calls it. The SEC has no jurisdiction in crypto. This case most likely goes to the Supreme Court. And if it doesn't, right? If it doesn't, we will still have regulations come from the IMF with the BIS and the FSB to the G20. I said this. But this article got written and it really kind of broke a few things down. Now, another great article is actually this one. Now, this was from Tobias Adrian, Cross-Border Payments for the 21st Century. This was January 19th of this year. Now, this is an individual that has a ton of experience around the space. Going all the way back, he spent 13 years and 5 months at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Okay? And today, he has spent 6 years and 7 months at the IMF. Now, he is the financial counselor and director of Monetary and Capital Markets Department. You can see what his specialty is here in terms of everything that he has been doing at the IMF. So when we come back over to this, so this is actually not an article. This is a podcast. But I do have 2 areas that I want you to listen to within this podcast. It's from this 12-minute mark or so to about like 12:40, almost 13. And then I'm going to have another section on this that I want you guys to listen to. And then think of XRP during this time.
So in principle, it could be the basis for, sophisticated financial products.
So when you speak of common ledgers, and you're talking essentially about blockchain technology, which is, associated with crypto, and cryptocurrency has gone through, some pretty dramatic ups and downs recently, and the crash of FTX is a good example. Do you think that, people are a little reluctant to adopt these technologies because they associate them with crypto?
Yeah, so the crypto universe has, I would say, fundamental problems from a policy perspective. So one is that many crypto assets are not tied to fundamental value. They're purely speculative, so you can see values go up and down. And that doesn't work very well for payments. Secondly, the consensus mechanism on these blockchains that are DLT blockchains means that you don't have finality of payment. So you never know for sure that the payment has gone through. No. It's very likely, but you don't know for sure, and there can be forking. So it has occurred sometimes that one payment has been associated with two different branches in the consensus mechanism. So that doesn't work from a policy perspective. And then thirdly, it has a lack of identity, right? So it is, Bitcoin is fundamentally constructed to be anonymous in order to evade governments. And of course, from a government or a policy perspective, you want to have identity because you want to make sure that, whoever makes those payments is responsible for the payments he or she makes. But the technology can be used for policy purposes. And that is what we are proposing, is to use certain technological innovations such as tokenization, ledgers, which are not distributed ledgers, but common ledgers, and then smart contracts in a way that works from a central bank, from a finance ministry, from a government's perspective.
So you talked earlier about creating some kind of electronic money or a digital asset of some kind that the international community can use.
Now, this is where it gets very interesting about XRP, because we all know that XRP is a decentralized currency that can be utilized internationally by anyone. And listen closely to this.
In the system, how, with all these issues related, again, to crypto, in terms of the public acceptance of this idea, how confident are you that we can come up with a digital asset that is acceptable to countries around the world to use?
So what makes me very confident is that we're heading in the right direction, is that the private sector is innovating and is already operating systems that are somewhat similar to what we're proposing. But the private sector cannot tokenize central bank reserves, right? This is not, the private sector can tokenize their own deposits. But that is never as liquid and as trustworthy as tokenizing central bank reserves. So there's a clear role for the public sector relative to what the private sector is doing. But what the private sector is doing is both in philosophy and technology very closely related to what we are proposing. And so this is why I'm confident that it is both feasible and desirable.
And then last but not least, I do just want to play this little section here at the end.
Exactly. So major banks would still play an important role, but smaller players would also now be at a level playing field because all banks could have access to the system. There's a different question of whether non-banks could, and that depends on the jurisdiction. But banks could have access, so all banks could compete for cross-border payments. And so that should bring some of the monopoly rents down.
Okay.
So there we have it, right? When you have a bank starting to utilize something like XRP-powered on-demand liquidity, every other bank can now compete with one another by utilizing this type of technology. I've actually said it before that this level playing field is coming. Ripple will do that. The monopoly that we know of today is going to be completely gone. The best part about this is that, there's no mention of XRP here. There's no mention of Ripple. He's talking about the private and public sector essentially here. But we do know that Tobias Adrian, going all the way back to 2020, shout out to XRP Crow for this. International payments are expensive and the structure is not very well. International payments are expensive and the structure is not very well built. Ripple is an example because it has new technology that increases financial inclusion. Listen closely to this. This is Tobias Adrian now.
And, a large part of the population in the world doesn't have access to bank accounts. And even if it does have access to bank accounts, those are extremely expensive. It's expensive to make payments, wirements, international payments. So I think one of the big motivations for this new technology, right, because Agustin is asking why, is that there's huge financial exclusion, and these technologies have proven to increase financial inclusion enormously. So I think you have to look broadly around the world. I think this is one motivation, and I think the Ripple example is one example, and Norman has talked about that, is that international payments are very expensive, and the structure is not very well built. And,
So again, as we do look at what's happening here, the last quote there was perfect, right? He talks about Ripple, but listen to the end.
Example is one example, and Norman has talked about that, is that international payments are very expensive and the structure is not very well built.
The structure is not very well built. The problem with everyone around the XRP community is they think that XRP is going to be, immediately injected into the system today, tomorrow, next week. We need the proper infrastructure. The lawsuit, in my opinion, was utilized to slow it down. Slow this technology down so that they can utilize this technology, but they need the infrastructure to be in place. Here you guys have Brad Garlinghouse. You guys know this historical meeting where you had Christine Lagarde. Everyone was centered out on Christine Lagarde, but nobody noticed Tobias Adrian here. A lot of people did put their names up here, very similar to Christine Lagarde, but mostly, right, everyone was focused on Christine Lagarde here. Brad Garlinghouse, listen, he's the only one here that is from the crypto community. Ripple is the only company actually here. Ripple is the only company that Tobias Adrian mentioned. In this podcast, you have him literally talking about the cross-border payment sector for the 21st century. He's talking about utilizing a currency that can be utilized internationally by any major entity, any major bank, any small bank, and it will level the playing field, which is a quote that comes directly from the XRP community and Ripple, and it will end the monopoly. And as soon as banks start competing with one another around utilizing XRP, it's game over. This is something significant. And also remember just recently that Tobias Adrian reposted this from the IMF. Money lies at the foundation of the financial system, and in today's digital age, technology presents an opportunity for money to evolve. Cryptography, tokenization, and programmability are explored around the world as a basis to improve money from banks to central banks. The aim is to offer money that can sit alongside messaging apps, work efficiently, and even safer. In a speech today in Morocco, IMF financial counselor and director of the Monetary and Capital Markets Department, Tobias Adrian, delved into the infrastructure behind money and presented a blueprint for improvements, a new class of cross-border and domestic payments and contracting platforms. Today's new technologies allow the public sector to renew the infrastructure supporting cross-border payments and possibly domestic ones as well. This will bring people together through faster and cheaper payments and countries together through a more stable and cohesive international monetary system. You guys understand what is happening here? We are seeing a massive shift happening around our core infrastructure. It's going to take time. But damn it, I'm telling you right now, I'm so damn excited to be in this market at this time. I don't know if you guys can share the same excitement that I have, but knowing what's coming, understanding the significance of what's happening as well, and being a part of some of these significant projects, like, XRP for the longest time has been laughed at, scrutinized around its price action. Guys, we're talking about investments here. It took well over a decade for Amazon to skyrocket to its massive valuations. I'm not saying that we're going to have to wait a decade, but I'm telling you right now that some of these assets in the space, if you want short-term gains, go ahead and chase short-term gains. I'm looking at the long term here. I strongly believe that XRP is a $1 trillion plus asset. I've talked about it many times on this channel. We're talking, everyone wants to look at Amazon and Google and Apple and look at the stock prices. Some of these assets have $1 trillion market caps. These are products. We're talking about an asset, a currency that can potentially be utilized as a bridge currency between all major banks, all major, entities out there around the financial system. Now listen, is XRP going to move all the money? No, it's not. But we're talking about a significant shift happening here. Ripple is networking with hundreds of financial institutions, centering XRP at the center point of all their product offerings. Combined with that, with the XRP ledger and the 100 plus use cases being built out on top of the XRP ledger, you have a recipe for incredible value. I ask you all to take a step back and realize that this innovation that's happening can easily be clouded by, overthinking, impatience, and not understanding what you actually hold. Everyone is centered out on one thing. They think that this lawsuit's going to end in a positive way. What if it ends in a negative way? Will you still hold? Will you buy more XRP? Because I've talked about it. Everyone thinks that I'm supposed to be, 100% on board with Ripple winning this lawsuit. We don't know. We got to prepare for either scenario. And honestly, guess what? Ripple losing the lawsuit would technically be right on par with what they would want. They would want Ripple to lose the lawsuit, shake things up around the retail sector, make sure to shake out as many people as possible that were, betting on Ripple winning. And guess what? The price drops, it crashes. Everyone's saying, I'm out, I'm getting out. All of a sudden, all systems are a go. Could you imagine? It would be the biggest shakeout. Again, is this going to happen? We don't know. I'm speculating. But this is what you got to think of. You got to think of, what could happen? What could happen to shake me out of my XRP position fully? And then you got to think to yourself, would that really shake me out? Knowing all of the information that I know now. In my opinion, nothing will shake me out of my XRP position. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. Because I see the long-term growth here. I see what their plan is. I see all the connections going all the way back to 2020 and even before 2020. You had Brad Garlinghouse and the Ripple team sitting next to extremely high-level directors. This is an absolute game changer. Being able to be this early in this space, it truly is something remarkable. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on if you guys want more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. So that you all have a beautiful day or a beautiful night wherever you guys are on this beautiful world. This has been Nick. Peace out, guys.